Oh my god, hello. I think this is working. I can never tell because the internet hates me. And it hates you. It's Saturday morning and we're doing Art of Rock. It's turned into a cartoon show. Every Saturday, we've now moved this to Saturday. Boom. Art of Rock. Watch this goddamn fucking thing and we're going to help you make your music. And
is that okay?
Everything's going to be fantastic. This is brought to you by Angelspit's Patreon. Many of the members are here. You guys keep me going. I'm going to try and keep you going. You don't have to be a Patreon member to watch or to jump in because all is love and all is full of love, which is what Bjork said, and Bjork's right. God damn it. Angelspit's new album is called Diesel Priest. Your parents are going to hate it. I promise. I'm sort of stealing... hey, Mez, you should jump in. Stealing Drake's fucking band bio, which is one of the best band bios I've ever read, which we should talk about at some point. Angelspit's also got like an spacey art album going on called Glass Jar, Sequence 1 Glass Jar, which John's wearing the hoodie for. And it's bloody awesome. I think it's bloody awesome. So fucking go get a copy, because it's the tits. It's like fucking fully awesome. You need to know about these tracks. This is a Spotify playlist. Many of the bands are here. Jump on and enjoy them because it's great. And speaking of bloody awesome music, if you like it non-stop, which we're going to go over there today, we're going to raid after this, is MTV TV. Because it's just great. You're going to learn about your new favorite band there. And if you are in a band and you want to get your video played, email them. And they will probably play it. In fact, I would call that, if it's a video clip, they're going to play it. They also run a Patreon to keep them going. So, hey, support them dudes, because them dudes are good. I am now going to throw the floor open to Monsieur Rizal. And
you can pronounce it Razi for short.
Razi. I wanted to go the French one because it kind of sounded more like, you know...
Yes, I appreciate that.
Hit me with that question, and we will together use our Sith powers to save Padme.
I am at the point between brainstorming and turning my marketing and release schedule into to-do lists, you know, like actual steps. And there's two things that come up that are difficult for me, and hopefully people can weigh in with their own techniques. And brainstorming, you know, the uncensored collection of ideas, talking to your peers and friends about getting the ideas together, and then turning that into, from a nebulous morass into something that is action steps. And I'm interested in other people's techniques and steps for getting between those 2 points and what tools they use on either side.
Okay. I'm going to throw the floor open. And while I'm doing that, I muted everyone's mic, so please unmute your mic. While I'm doing that, I'm going to get a timeline that could help you. So does anybody want to answer that question? Oh, come on. You guys are the geeks of geeks. You guys use software and to-do lists and stuff. What is the difference between, hey, I've got a really cool idea for a database and I've got to get my album out? What's the difference? There's no difference. It's like, oh, I've got all these cool ideas and I have to formulate them into something. You're already doing this in your job. What do you do?
The conversation of inspiration. It was like where that. Oh, okay, you give me that finger.
No, right. It's not really inspiration because inspiration's already happened. My understanding of it is that this is about marketing. That the album's done, and we're talking about how the fuck do I put this fucker out now? Excuse my French. Yeah, or are we just talking about any form of?
Yeah, this could be for any project. I mean, mine happens to be on topic. I mean, we're talking about months of emailing and talking to people about strategy, and that I've got notes that I just have to turn into a Gantt chart, a Kanban board, a to-do list with check things. And I've actually brought this up last week, and we made some progress with finding out what the major topics are and turning those into individual notes for myself. So I've got that. But you know, it applies to any big project, from planning to action. I mean, I'll admit that I'm an adherent to David Allen's GTD style of doing things, which, you know, the things that end up on your checklist are a verb that can be completed so you can check it. And there are review periods where you've got to go through your list of things that are just put down uninhibited. And that review period is kind of what's challenging right now for me anyway. You know, turning it, I've made such a pile for myself that even looking at it to go through, maybe this is a bit of ADHD, maybe it's just the way everybody would operate, but it gets confusing, and I don't end up seeing things in my list and recognizing them and being able to turn them into, okay, on March 18th we're going to email PR person.
So I do, okay, that actually helps represent this, because this is more of a project management question.
Absolutely.
I'm going to approach this work with kind of like agile methodology and start going off in corporate land a little bit. But
that's cool, yeah.
Agency work and also like just day-to-day software engineering work, but this applies to honestly any workflow. You have, practically like, what's known as a backlog. Like here's, it's like, here's a pile of work. Now what's, each one of those individual tasks has, should have both a size and priority, and also like you can look at it like, what is the risk? What are the unknowns? What are the things that I don't know about it? And part of the difficulty is knowing like what to do first, what is important, what is not. And so there's a ritual, which is referred to as refinement, where you are going through that backlog of individual tasks and you're reviewing each one of them. Some of it is applying a priority. Is this a high, and it doesn't have to be complicated. High, medium, low, priority. You think of it like t-shirt sizing, large, medium, small. A couple different ways of doing it. It's like, how much effort is it going to be? Is this going to be like a monolithic effort? It's like, is this something that I can do in a day? Is this something that is going to take me like multiple weeks? If it's not something that can be broken into like a fairly discrete task, should it be broken out into separate tasks? Like, it's like, because you can be like, for example, write a description for every discrete track on the album. Okay, so there's 15 tracks on the album. It's like, should that be one monolithic task, or should that be 15 individual ones? Like, how long does it take? If it takes you 2 minutes to do that, that's, treat it as an entire task. If it's going to take you an hour per track, maybe split it up. If you're not using something formal for your project management, if you're just doing this with, let's say, like a spreadsheet or something like that, I would just add a column for like size, effort, honestly, priority, and risk. And like, risk is like, how much of this is unknown. And then you can just sort it by what is the highest priority. If something is low priority, high risk, like you don't know how much work it's going to be, or low priority, high effort, like don't fucking do it.
Let's assume I am going to use a tool to manage that. And the last time I used an agile, repo or management thing was Asana, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's been a few years, but like go with that, like assuming I'm going to be using something to, because I plan to, or whatever you suggest, or something I look into and find.
Most of the solutions that I've spent a lot of time with Jira, by Atlassian. Huge caveat here. That is great for teams and also for people who are professionally trained to use that, and it's a highly configurable. It's a one size fits most, and you can spend all your time messing around with the solution. Asana is fine. I've used it. It's off the shelf. It is also configurable, but it's like for straight up project management, that works quite well. You could even use Trello. Like Trello works. Atlassian also owns Trello now, but you can add weighting and prioritization, and also just use that for a view of like what stage in the process you're in. Is this something that you you can have like multiple columns for like one that is kind of like the backlog, like what's unrefined. things that are ready to do, things that are in progress, things that are done, things that are blocked. You can have those discrete states there.
Being able to track the blocking, what's blocking items is really important, because then it, orders your activities.
Oh, I did start with a Gantt chart, but man, did I get bogged down in contingencies.
That'll cause that.
Yeah.
I never liked Gantt charts.
Gantt charts definitely have their use, but the part of the, and waterfall also, like as a project management, it has a use, and sometimes, by nature, sometimes there are dependencies. Like you have to get a thing done before you can do it. It's like you need a ISNN number, like a UPC, before you can go publish. It's like, and so that is by nature a waterfall dependency. But you can also execute tasks in parallel, simultaneously. Like sometimes it's like, I want somebody to give me a listen to this. I want somebody to give a review. You can send that off. That's, you're waiting for the response on that, and you do not have to block other things while you're waiting for that thing to execute. So it's like, when you're waiting for a response, say like waiting for somebody to do a remix for you, is that blocked or is that in progress? I would consider that in progress. It can be demoralizing to have something like sitting around for a while that like you can't just resolve, but like acknowledge that it is in its way. Blocked, I would say is that's when you are waiting on somebody else in order to finish something that is preventing you from completing a task. So that's where that, like the example of a remix, that's kind of a gray area. Mark, you've got thoughts?
Not terribly. Just I don't like Gantt charts, and I think Kanban is my favorite kind of like simple setup. But it also been like if you have like 70 tasks, then Kanban probably not the best if it's just you, because it's a lot to look at all at once, and that's what really demoralizes a lot of people. Like I think there was an experiment done where they're like, okay, so either we're going to show them 3 kinds of peanut butter or 20 kinds of peanut butter they can buy. And when you put 20 options in front of someone, they're like, well, I don't know. Did I pick the right one? I don't know. There's so many things to compare, to look at. But so you want to keep it simple for yourself when you're looking at it, as not to be overwhelmed, which is why that's why the Agile backlog works really well. But Kanban is much more visual. So I would actually recommend that for. I'm assuming that that your tasks are not going to be big enough for Agile to really be a great idea.
In that I won't be doing the planning as a group and doing the refinement with other stakeholders and story owners and stuff.
There's a lot to it, and also I'm assuming that there are not, 70 tasks for you to handle. Like maybe total, but like at a glance, like
right. The stuff that's at a glance on my plate should be much more limited to what one person could do in a day or a week, rather than the entire year's worth of stuff for a team. Yeah,
like although I think of a Kanban board, usually it's for the whole project, but I want to say a lot of times like you can have subtasks within the board. Yeah. So that kind of helps with that. So like at the 1,000-yard level, it's like 20 things, but you can drill into each layer.
Okay, this is actually really interesting. Mark, you mentioned something very interesting about the peanut butter. That's actually very, very interesting about as far as marketing goes. I'm just going to shoot my mouth off because it's what I do. I made a spreadsheet using Google Docs, and there it is. Go download it, and I'll put it in the chats as well. Go download it. And Rob,
this is amazing.
Rob's chiming in. Wow, you guys really... Yeah, Rob brought in some really interesting points about Kanban and that. I don't know what the fuck, but it's all this is interesting shit. So, as far as management goes, that everything that you guys were just talking about was a little over my head, was very interesting, and it might help. That spreadsheet we've covered before, and I did I put it in the chats? I can't tell. Did I just put that freaking?
Yeah, it's in the Zoom chat.
It's in. Is it also on?
It's incredible.
On fucking Twitch.
It is also on Twitch.
All right, this is how much I suck.
Team
So
effort.
that was between. Thank you. That's myself and Planet Damage got together to build that thing. After releasing a whole bunch of bits and pieces, we've talked about this one before on the Patreon, on the Art of Rock. This is good because it's giving you a timeline layout as per the release. So when you are and there's a little spot in there, so you'll have to download it or make it active or something. If you want, I can give you the editable link so you can actually, if you change, what I'm going to do, I'll give you an editable link. The hold on, the link I gave you is not editable, but
it is downloadable.
All right,
yeah,
great.
Just make a copy of it, and then you can do whatever.
Excellent, thank you. So do that. And what you do is you just put the date that you want to release it in. Here's something funny. So I'm currently trying to put out a remix album, another one, and it's been delayed now a month because my agitator came back to me twice and said, okay, here's the first problem, da-da-da-da-da, and of course it wasn't a problem because I fucking well did it. And they said, here's a whole bunch of secondary problems. They bounced it back because I said a track was explicit, and it wasn't explicit. It's like, Jesus, and it's a 3 strikes and you're out thing. Like, if they bounce it back to you 3 times, you have to re-upload the whole fucking thing. And it's like, the content, what this track's talking about is fucked up. They don't care, whatever. So it came back again. And this is really interesting because we were talking about that hack with Spotify with primary artists, that if there's a whole bunch of primary artists, each of them get it in their feed saying, hey, you've got a new album coming up, push the album. As it turns out, they're not going to let me do that. I thought we could do that, and I swear to God I've done that before, but they're not letting me do it. So if, for example, John, if you do a remix for me, you're credited as a remixer, not as a primary artist. If you're in there as a primary artist, you will get an alert from Spotify saying, hey, you've got an up-and-coming track coming out, a remix you did for Carl. You can now push that to your audience and a greater audience. So everybody, it helps everybody, right? No. Unfortunately, Spotify and DistroKid, because we were just trying that with one of Drake's releases, suck that out. I'm sorry, I just rushed over something that's really important, but we'll cover that again later. Anyway, the moral of the story is that give your fucking agitator a fucking month for them to fucking get their shit together and upload it. And that's all built into that. So if you change the dates, all of the dates are going to change as well. So, building up to it and all of that sort of jazz, that's what's important. That's all I had to say. If you guys want to keep talking about all of that stuff, you're welcome to, because this is helpful. Or we could talk about that database or whatever you want.
I'm pretty psyched to have heard everybody's perspective on project management from there. It's just kind of the little bit of inspiration that I needed to remind me that we all do this.
Yeah. John, talk to me.
Yeah, no, I was like looking at this. This is fantastic. I also I see the way that you're, it's backdated by days, and I see how you have a target date, and then it's like, okay, this is how long these individual things will take. A different, so that's part of a release. Part of what was said right before we went live, which is also I was thinking about, was when the question about moving between workstations, but also part of the whole production process of the not fun parts of composition, going through and labeling every track in a coherent way, in a way that is going to make sense, say, a year from now, having metadata, and not in any kind of arcane format, just like a fucking text file that says, it's these are the software synths that I used for this, or here's the hardware synth, or here's the signal path, or what have you, and being able to, put things together. Last year, I had transitioned between workstations. It was it was time. The old one was getting long on the tooth, and it's like, okay, yeah, I'll just install it and just copy things over, and just away we go. And I had a project that I was in the middle of, and so I copied. My workflow is mostly software synthesizers, so I copied over. I installed Ableton. I copied over like all what I thought was there, and realized I'm missing a bunch of like custom presets that I made. Contact in particular does an awful job of like when you are missing an instrument, and so what it'll do is it'll Contact will freak out. Spitfire audio is also pretty terrible. It'll just like load a generic thing instead of like what it meant to, and so you'll hit play on something and it'll sound absolutely wrong, and you're scratching your head, and then it turns out it's not telling you any error. So what do you do about that? It's that anal retentive like documentation. What is every fucking effects that I used on this thing? What is every synthesizer that I used on this thing? Are the tracks labeled? Which helps also with communication before you sending off for mixing and mastering. Even if you do it yourself, like, okay, yeah, this is the drums. When you bounce it down, does it have a coherent label to it? And so forth. So, yeah, the art of bureaucracy, not rock.
Thank you, John. Ivan, can I go in? John, was there anything else you wanted to add there? All right, Ivan, the floor is yours. I might jump in after you.
So I'm also an Ableton user, and working with other members of band who are also Ableton users, and we use a shared drive out in the cloud to share the projects, and a couple of caveats in that. One, you have to be on the same version of Ableton, or don't expect everybody to be able to reopen the project. So to make sure everybody's on the same version, discovered that the hard way. Labeling. Usually my workflow is to build parts, build phrases in the clip view, and then I'll go and arrange it. But so when I'm looking at those parts there, that's when I start labeling everything, and I want to know, I want to be able to make it as easy for everybody else as possible. So like even the title of the project includes things like what key it's in, the BPM that it's starting at, because then you can just look and you know without having to think about it. And then in the clips, quite often it'll I will letter the parts of the song that it belongs to, and so that letter will be there. And then if it's a variation, that will be a number. And then each piece, like instead of leaving like the instrument name up on top, I label each piece so that where in the song that it actually how it relates to the song. So like the bass drum track is labeled bass drums, because then you just know what belongs where. And then the instruments and plugins and sounds, like all the components of it, collect and save, always collect and save, so that you got all the things that you need for that project inside of that project. And then on external instruments, I have discovered that instead of thinking that I'm going to remember to go to the instrument and set the preset for it to where it needs to be so that I can use it in that particular project, I just use program change and let Ableton set which instrument that instrument should be set up as. Because program change is definitely your friend on that one. At first, I thought that it wasn't a big deal. It turns out that's a really big deal. And then for sharing it with sharing with the other guys, I will bounce all of the tracks. I'll actually record those, and those will be the things that I expect them to listen to, instead of, you know, like letting Ableton on their side replay all the work that I've already done. So once that's, you know, like once it's frozen and you know, collected, that's great. But you know, as soon as you know, actually have, you know, record that as a stem, now you've gotten rid of latency, which, you know, or potential latency. So you've just made things easier on the other side.
Wow. Thanks. Ivan, am I jumping in, or are you good?
Also, I do like to stuff a lot of information into notes.
Okay. I have I use Cubase. Within Cubase, there's a text pad. I use the text pad because I've got to say what synthesizer is what loaded with what bank or what floppy disk or what zip disk, which zip disk, all that shit. Because I'm all hardware. I do not make notes about the modular, because once it's done, it's fucking done. I have the master sheet that, you know, tells me where the songs are at. I've mentioned this, and I've done blipverts about the creative project management sheet that I have, the other Excel file. I'll also make comments in there about stuff. With the new Angelspit stuff, because it's very it's Emacs is running through fucking compression and distortion and all sorts of fun shit. I've got this, and it's because you know, like, theoretically I'm never going to use it again. It's a printed out spreadsheet, and I don't then type this shit in there, and it says what MIDI channel it's on, what key range it's on, a description of the sound, what the preset of the sound is, which output of the Emacs it's coming out of. Everybody has just walked out because this is the most boring shit in the world that I'm talking about right now. What compressor it's going into, what distortion pedal it's going into, and what desk it's going into, what channel on the desk. No, and unfortunately John missed all of the important stuff because he was away. No, it's too late, you've gone.
I was helping my daughter play a video game and putting headphones on her so I could hear every bit about your anal retentive process, you twat.
Because the thing about, like, a modular system that, you know, is really, because, like, now the Emacs are in a modular system, is that there's a whole bunch of cables going on. I have no idea where they're going and what they mean. None at all. I am nowhere near as smart as you think I am, which is concerning. I think a lot of you don't think I'm very smart. Shut up, John. So yeah, and this just basically helps me keep it. And it's printed out and it's written in pencil and it's kept in a book, all of which can get lost. What's funny is that I actually had to dig into a song recently because for reasons, and it was like I went back to it and I went, I can't rebuild this. I spent a whole day. I thought, it'll take me an hour, and it took the whole fucking day, and I was really questioning, like, I don't know, but this just keeps it going for that. So I guess the moral is notes, and text files, and then archive that with the project. You know, and if I'm really needed, I'll take a photo of this or something. So, yeah. Ivan, your hand is up, and I also see Rezi's hand is up. Did you want to talk again, or does Rezi want to talk?
I'll jump in. It's quick. I have one track that started maybe 5 years ago, and there's just file saves all along, and it's a finished mix. You know, everything's done with it, but I gotta go back to it to try to pick out some guitar parts to do a live performance version. And there's one guitar track that doesn't have the tuning labeled, and I cannot figure out what tuning I used on this thing. It's like, you know, I tuned maybe just the B string down a half step to get this open chime, you know, thing, so that I hear the part played and there's two open notes playing together that are impossible to reach. But if I tune the rest of them up a half step instead of that one down a half step, it also doesn't work. I'm going out of my mind. So even labeling all of your guitar tunings, if you happen to have such things, or microtonal tables or something like that on your synth tracks or whatever you're going to want to ever recreate. A little lesson to myself.
For sure. Yeah, it's really fascinating how and a big hi to Dr. Karen, who's watching. I had an excellent conversation with Dr. Karen and resonating crystals 2 weeks ago, which will blow my mind. And by the way, big news, Stacey Abrams has been cast in Star Trek as the President of Earth. Fucking A, right? Isn't that awesome?
Wait. Like Stacey Abrams?
Stacey Abrams, the legend, has been cast in Star Trek, I think Picard, as the President of Earth. Of the United Earth. Isn't that awesome? You know, Star Trek was Martin Luther King's favorite show. And
I want to make sure we're talking about the same Stacey Abrams. Okay, great.
We're talking about Stacey Abrams, the one, the only Stacey Abrams. And it was Martin. It's the funny story. Now I'm talking about Star Trek, but I'm going to come back. What's her name? The actress who played La Jolla? Uhura?
Oh,
Michelle Nichols.
Michelle Nichols, who tragically lost a brother in the Heaven's Gate cult. Michelle Nichols wanted to quit Star Trek. Do you know this story? Yeah, and she was done with it. She didn't want to do it, and she met Martin Luther King. And he said, "Oh my God, I love the show." And she said, "Why do you love it?" And he said, "Because we made it. And not only did we make it, but a black female is third in control of one of the most powerful ships on Earth. Number 3 in control." And she went, "I'm staying." There you go. Fuck yeah. Stacey Abrams, President of Earth. That means I get to vote, incidentally. It's back to this. It's really fascinating how much, like, she was on the last Picard episode. Thank you very much. It's really fascinating how within music there is so much work, and there's so much, like, you know, once upon a time you sat down with your acoustic guitar and your piano or something, and you scribbled some notes and you put it in your book. And then we got, you know, drum machines, and you look at how they made, and stop me if I'm wasting your time. You know, you look at how they used to program the old synthesizers, like, dude, that was like, and then save it on a tape. And now it's like, we have all of this stuff, and it's just overload. There's so many cases of peanut butter, as Mark said before. No, seriously, dude, that was such a really excellent thing. That it's just all of these plugins and all, and it's funny how music has become this such a mathematical thing and such a structure, and like, really at the end of the day, and this is why I can't use plugins and I have to stay away from the computer as much as possible. As you know, I am violently allergic to corporate life. Music has become so similar in structure, management, etc., as creating your work in a cubicle or your day job or da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, you know, because I know so many of us, we work and everything from the same terminal because we're not lucky enough to have a studio. That the computer that we do our work on is also the computer that we do our music on. And what's the difference between this? I'm working. And this, I'm doing music. Or this, I'm doing my taxes. What's the difference?
A keyboard.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you can do taxes on a keyboard, but I don't.
But nevertheless, no, I appreciate that. And my point is that, you know, I think we were talking before, and you're right, we were talking before we streamed this about, you know, raga beats and all of this stuff, and how do you get out of your head? And I'm getting off topic now, but my point is that, you know, when it comes to production and when it comes to actually building this stuff, I don't think there's a way around it. You've got to do all this shit. I'm going to shut up now.
I want to just spin that a tiny bit 90 degrees and harken back to the two things. Interning at 24-track tape-based studios, the process of recall was like your Emacs sheet there. You put a little mark on which way the knobs were pointing, and then another intern would ostensibly be able to turn the knobs to the same position and then repatch it.
That's what they call them,
interns. The mix would come back. Yeah. Well, that was good boot camp. It was a good way to learn. But fast forward about 10 years later for me, and I was doing sysx dumps to my synths instead of saving programs and sending program changes to trust that the synthesizers would have the same programs in them next time I pulled the song up. So, two-way MIDI cables to the computer with a MIDI patch bay, and I don't even remember. I guess it was Studio Vision Pro, probably sysx in one of the tracks, and send that. Maybe I was using the patch library, and who knows? But it was insane.
Yeah.
The fact that you can at least host, if you're lucky, mostly native plugins that ship with your DAW, and just load the program, and synths and samplers and most of your audio tracks and your effects have the same programs come up in one shot. It's pretty cool. It does revolutionize 20 years ago how things work. It's a little moment to really appreciate what we've got. And the notes that we take can now be about things like what tuning was used rather than how to point the knobs on our external effects. I'm pretty into that.
Awesome. Thank you. Ivan, you have to sing whatever you say now. You have to sing it.
Oh, you don't want me doing that.
Dude, you sounded so good just singing that just then. You sounded so good just singing that right then.
Oh.
Sorry. I know. Ivan has been engaged.
Now I want to bring out my hard bass voice.
You what?
Hard bass.
Who?
Hard bass.
What's that? I don't know what you're doing right now. Dude, these Saturday morning sessions are random.
My ADHD just got ahead of me and I completely forgot what
Yes,
it was
it
I was
did.
going to talk
It did.
about.
I watched it take you over. It was great. Come back. No, the floor is yours. Talk to me. You don't have to sing. Talk to me.
You know, I literally can't remember what it was that I was actually going to say. We were talking about presets, weren't we?
Yeah.
Patch librarians.
Yeah, no,
editors,
there's
that kind of stuff.
yeah, and there is. Okay. Oh yeah, no. Now I remember where it started. I mean, maybe I'm lucky. I have separate hardware for separate activities. I will never do not work like my day job. I will never use my day job hardware for anything that is not that particular day job. Usually because like I am so deeply buried in NDAs and IP stuff that like I dare not even, I will never even play an MP3 of like a track that I've made on my day job hardware. I will never look at software that I've written for not my day job hardware on that hardware, because I never ever want to get into a Silicon Valley situation where they're like, oh, well, we see that you tested this from here once, so now it's ours. Or you listened to this from here once, and since you made it, and now it's ours. Because like those kinds of things, they can and do happen to people. So separate hardware for day job, and then like music production, I've got main music production, and then when I'm out at practice music production, because when I'm at home, I want to use the big desktop. Do I want to travel with the big desktop? Never. So then I've got the notebook just for going somewhere else. And that has led me to like, I think I'm about to do a rebuild on the desktop and notebook completely, because I want to be able to just have an external drive that I plug in, and all my stuff is there, and I unplug that and plug it into the other, and all my stuff is just there. I don't want to have to think about that anymore, and it's perpetually annoying. But at the same time, I never use the desktop and the notebook at the same time, because I only have two hands and two eyes and one good display. So there's that, and then and as far as like using software synths, they've made a whole lot of things possible that would have otherwise been impossible, because like I'm I am, if Roland has made it, I probably have fallen in love with it at some point or another. So, I am the poster boy for Roland Cloud, despite its many annoyances. There's no shortage of annoyances there. But, being able to just like bust out a Juno 106 and then, throw a pair of Jupiter 8s at the problem, how's that not a good thing? And then, like the Zen Cloud drum kits are fun. They're nice. They're a great place to start if you don't happen to be a drummer. And I'm about as far from drummer as you could get. Never think that I'm going to be a drummer. That would be like, that's like asking a cat to swim.
Thank you.
That was my thoughts.
That's a good thought. I feel that, does anybody else want to throw in on this very exciting topic of data management? Or do we want to talk about something more different or similar? I see your hand, Rezzy.
If we're going to stay on topic, and I don't know if this is going to prompt silence or aversion or interest, long-term storage of projects that you might need to go back to. We've sort of touched on it with notes and stuff, bouncing, getting stems rendered. I don't know if I have an actual question in that, but there's some point at which all of my live effects, I'm Ableton Live, all of the return tracks need to get rendered to make this something that I could open on any machine, whether or not they've got those plugins installed. And I don't know, I guess, does anybody bother doing this? Like make a truly stems version of every single track?
No. Once it's done, it's done. I will keep the Cubase files and everything get backed up at least twice across separate hard drives.
Twice locally, once remote.
Twice remote, once locally. I just because I'm pretty anal like that. I have never once. I've done 100 remixes and 10 albums and 10 remix albums or something. Not once gone into the Cubase files. I will probably be doing that for the Glass Jar project because of the audio book that we're creating, because it's going to be amazing. But I personally never do that.
So you bounce out rendered stems and use those exclusively for the rest of the time, or you mean you never actually have to go back to the Cubase file itself, the work file?
Well, firstly, what I will bounce out is the finished mix, the unmastered finished mix. And if I'm doing remixes, then there's them too, the stems, select stems. I don't give all stems because I'm that guy. And then one day when we're talking about remixes, I'm going to tell you about the new project because it's very exciting. But I never, ever go back into the Cubase files. Never. And I've got everything set up that I just assumed that I would. That's why I keep all of these notes. But I never do it. It's the strangest thing.
Seems healthy. I mean,
and I used to also
sure.
back stuff up on DVD as well. And then I was looking into tape storage as well. But it's like I just couldn't be fucked anymore. It's like all of the original files from Crunk House, they're corrupted. The CDs don't work anymore because they were done on CDs. The Cubase files were done on CDs, and the hard drive backup is mincy. And it's like I went, oh my god, and then I went, I don't care. Like I epically, overwhelmingly don't fucking care. That's just me. So I'm going to shut up now. If anybody else wants to talk about this.
When you're saying bouncing them out, are you putting them into WAV or a different format?
96K 24-bit WAV files. Yes. So everything's as full render as it can be.
I sometimes dither 16-bit just so I know that they're going to be there for that, but either 48K or whatever, but sometimes dither to 16 rather than the full 24, depending on the application.
Great.
If you want to know what your dither is going to do, you probably will never hear it, but it's nice to at least be aware.
Yeah, for sure. I have a magic mastering guy that does all that shit because I'm a lazy bum. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to throw in on that, or John was talking about a live performance question, or we could talk more about this.
It's related. It was actually specifically bouncing. It's like how much to do live, how much not to do live. It's like last week we were talking about the size of the rig. What goes into making a good live performance. It was the conversation centered around physicality and ownership of the stage, various rituals around that. But what it didn't touch on was some of the it touched briefly on like a minimal set of what kind of hardware, what is worth bringing with you, and what's not. But what it didn't talk about was different approaches to what do you play? How do you keep the performance itself fresh? Recognizing the practicality of sometimes it makes sense to have something that is pre-rendered and ready to go. But how do you ensure that people who are in the audience are getting what they are expecting, which they expect to hear the song that they might be familiar with and some new ones, but also having an actual live performance, because if they just want to watch the same thing over again, they'll just press play on a YouTube video.
What a fantastic question. I'm going to, Rezi, is your hand up there first? All right, I'm going to shut the fuck up and just go, and then I'll throw it to Rose and whoever's next.
I haven't played live with U-Shriek in quite a while, but the one or two simple rules were no vocals on tape. It just doesn't translate for this particular thing. That includes speech samples or the actual singing, or skip the harmony vocals if we're not going to do them, but just don't have that coming from tape because that's so obviously human. And we also didn't do any bass guitar or electric guitar on tape. Backing tracks were for complicated synthesizer parts and drum machine sounding stuff. Things that would translate visually, I think this was covered. If there's an obvious gesture being made that connects with a sound that is prominent in the music, that's the one we go for. If there is a sample sequence of guitar hits that are chopped and screwed and not naturalistic, we could put those on pads. That's a good thing for somebody to be triggering with a big sweeping gesture that's obvious when it lands, that's where the sound is connected to. An arpeggio of 16th notes for the duration of the song, not so much. There's no way to connect that with the human standing behind, checking their email. Things that were the melodic hook, whether or not they're super visually connectable, the dexterity showing on somebody operating a piano keyboard style thing, I found to be pretty effective and at least fun for the musicians when they're doing the top line. And then also rhythmic signature hits. That's kind of a tough thing to determine whether things were. If it could be left off tape, off the backing tracks, and not ruin the song if somebody missed the cue, and we could put it on a sample and it's a short event, usually we'd do that. So there'd be a couple of triggers up in front that were, in front of the synthesizers and or the synth controllers. And those cues would be hit. Some of them were percussive elements, some of them were speech samples, some of them were noise effects and things like that. And I think that covers it.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. And also, I want to hear from everyone else because I'm always shooting my mouth off. Rose!
Hey, guys. So that's a really interesting question because I have done pretty much every configuration that you can think of live. I've done a full live band, 5-piece. I've done 4-piece with backing. I've done 3-piece. I've done 2-piece. I've done everything that you can think of. And the way that I like to do it is if whatever you have live, do not have backing of that thing. So, for example, I have guitar and bass, right? So even if there are any extra guitar lines or whatever in, you know, in the original track, we do not do guitar, you know, any extra guitars on the backing, because it just feels really fake and it's not rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, like, you can't, no, it's bad. So I usually will have any like synth or backing stuff. Also, you know, people don't expect that your live thing is necessarily going to sound picture perfect exactly like the tracks that are on the CDs necessarily, you know. Like for us, we have samples at the beginning of a lot of our songs that start right away, because there's no other way. There's no way for anybody to be on time if there's not something there at the beginning. So they are inherently different already right from the get-go when we go live. So we'll have certain samples that we know exactly what the length is, and then boom, then the song starts and stuff.
I'm
so
sorry.
I
just need to interrupt for 1 second. I have a cat issue I have to deal with. I'll be right back. No, it's good.
Okay.
Keep going. I'll be back in 3 minutes.
So yeah, and yeah, I don't usually do backing vocals unless it's a song that needs it. Like we do a cover of Monster Mash, and there's like some little backing vocals for that are like wow, and without those things, you know, it just doesn't sound like the Monster Mash anymore. So I do have those, but it's a kitschy enough song that it doesn't really bother anybody at all. Nobody even notices. So, but it just still adds to what that song is. Does that answer your question?
I think your point about cues for like long legato sections where there's no rhythmic element to follow for your timing entrance, I would definitely put in, you know, a count in of some sort, even if it's an instrumental element that wasn't in the original song, you know, like your
totally
30-second speech sample with, you know,
it'll have like 2 drum hits in there, or like a count of some sort. Like, you know, there's all kinds of little tricky ways that you can
months of rehearsal can get you most of the way there, but monitoring situation, fluctuations,
you just never know. It's good to have some kind of indication, because you just never know what the situation is going to be live. So you need to really hedge your bets. You know what I mean? You have to make it as easy as possible for you to always have some kind of signpost, some kind of something in the song that will keep you guided along, you know, in case the sound is just super fucked up, because you just never know what the sound is going to be like. It's just always a bet. What are you going to say, Raz? What you got?
John, do you have a specific application right now? Like, you know where you're going with it, like which the songs are and how you want to present them?
Not at this time. It's like right now it's just me, and I'm building out the set, and part of what I'm doing is like you know, some of it is, you know, getting back into actually seeing shows and comparing like how other people do it, and also like, you know, thinking about like how I'm bound, you know, it's like being tactful about like what I'm bouncing down, and yeah, you're looking at like the rehearsal, you know, performance space right now, but I'm also like being cognizant of like, all right, how am I, you know, because I'm also reflecting on like prior experiences when I've been performing on stage, usually as part of a band, but also like times that I've been solo. To the point, one of the worst experiences that I had was I was performing live, and someone came up and like made a request for like, what was it, like Daft Punk or something like that. It's like, you know, it was like, hey, could you play this next? I'm like, I'm doing this live. And it was a combination of like ignorance and, you know, but like, it was just like, it was insulting, but it was also forgivable, because like, how could they know what I was doing? Because all they could see is like some jackhole up there with a computer and some other stuff. And this is like,
that's a really interesting lesson.
Yeah. Wow. And so it was frustrating, but I look at Miss Machine from, I'm sorry, I Speak Machine a couple weeks ago.
Tara Bush.
Like watching 9 Inch Nails perform. 9 Inch Nails, you know, Trent Reznor will be at, you know, he'll have keyboards on stage at like 90 degrees perpendicular to, you know, so you see him playing, and then that gives him an opportunity to like pivot. So
yes.
Play, versus like this, where, you know, now you can't see like what he's doing, and, you know, and he's blocked and then has to step out.
Do that Jordan Rudess thing where it's facing this way and you play like a guitar, except it's mounted. The one of the questions that brings up that you're still planning and also mentioning Nine Inch Nails is having the option now to do a multi-track kind of thing where you've got cues or click on an isolated track or something might be an interesting way to go if you're starting from fresh, rather than my experience is always just doing a stereo mix, and we took all the cues from basically the house or monitor version of the 2-track mix, but having extra available tracks for, this is a big room, here's my subs, I'll use them. This is a good monitoring situation, I'll take the cue track that I used and I'll get some extra feedback. There's some possibilities open.
I am very honest with myself, knowing that I will not play a room anytime soon that will have that capability, but having discrete tracks for, you know, both like mix and monitor and a click, you know, and a click track, and you know that I'm absolutely looking at. It's like right now I'm looking at a Focusrite Scarlett 18920, which I'm using both for recording, but also it's rack mountable. So that's that's, I have one in the other room. I also have the little one right here. So yeah, it's like when it's like my mobile rig, like I'm basically going to transfer that into, you know, an SKG box or something and drag that with me. But, you know, so I can have that experience. Also, fuck you, Craigslist, for having, you know, advertising a Shure wireless system for $75, and I'm willing to drive out to get it, and no response. Ghosting, come on, like, you've got it, you want to get rid of it, it's got the rack mount and everything, come on, I will $100 for it, like, just respond.
Okay, this is a really interesting one. Every band that I've heard of that I've toured with, like big band, every single thing is on backing tracks, even backing vocals, even the guitars and the drums, and the guitarist and the drum along with it, to create something that is extra beef. Bands who I will not mention in soundcheck, when they play the backing track, it's the entire track as per the CD. And that's happened on so many occasions. Because the audience has become accustomed to listening to and hearing what they hear on the CD. They want to hear the recording. I have learned that it is a rare audience that wants to hear a rock and roll reinterpretation, a live interpretation of the track. The electronic, they say they kind of do, but my reinterpretation of the track and what they call a reinterpretation of the track is very different. Or what a lot of bands call it, who aren't session musicians. So my dialogue comes down to two things, is that what the audience are expecting, three things: what I can afford to give them, and what I want to give them. Because remember, if you're touring with a drummer, I'm talking touring, then you're taking the entire drum kit with you. Do not have the drum kit supplied at each venue, because it will go wrong. Oh my God. For you to cart a drum kit around, that's you've got to put that in a trailer. Like, fucking seriously. That's now adding to your gas, and you've got to make sure your car can pull that. And now you're paying for a drummer. So you've just increased by $1,000 a week. Oh my God, more now. So, ditto guitarist or two, or bass player. The bass player is always the next one to go. Actually, then it's the guitarist, then it's the keyboard player. For me, it comes down to financial necessity. I have done a 5-band tour, a 5-member tour. I lost so much money on that. I really wish I was in a position to just go, I want to do this thing because it's fun. I wish with every beat of my heart I could do that. But I can't. Because I can't afford to. And I can't, it's not cost effective or energy effective of me to just put on one show, because the energy required for me to put on one show might be equal to an energy output of one. For me, that then 2 shows, it's actually 1 and a bit, because everything's in place for that show. I just do rinse and repeat the next night. And for a tour, it's kind of the same thing, that logistics sort itself out and da-da-da-da-da. But they don't sort themselves out. That's not what I meant. You have to sort them out. What I want to say to this, what I really wish in that ideal world that none of us live in, but we wish we did, is you play live whatever the fuck you want. What's fun? That's what I want to say, is what is a fun way to do this? What's a fun, real way for you to do this show? The new Angelspit track, I want to take out a drummer. I want to take out a keyboard player who's either playing an Emax or a K2000, and I want to take out me. And the 3 of us are going to erupt unholy fucking hell. But there is a whole bunch of problems with that. Hi, Diana. There is a whole bunch, and Aristocrat. There's a whole bunch, which is the greatest joke ever told. There's a whole bunch of problems with that. Like the more members you've got, you also have to rehearse them. Get them together and rehearse them. And that sounds like it's a really easy idea, but my experience has been it's not. Because you have to get rehearsal space for like 3 people to get absolute rock and roll sharp. You are talking 2 or 3 months in rehearsal, a month solid rehearsal. And that's assuming that they can do their job and they can get there. And they have someone to look after their cat when they're away for a month touring. And a whole bunch of other reasons. You know, I just don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I want to tour so badly. My heart is dying to tour. But there are so many issues now that weren't there 10 years ago that I could go out. Okay, when I was in university, I remember there was a band in Australia called Def FX, and they used to tour like motherfuckers in Australia, and they were like the first cyberpunk band, and they were awesome. They were like surf rock meets cyberpunk, and they were like played on the radio. There's a radio station in Australia called Triple J, and they were playing The Prodigy and 9 Inch Nails before you've heard fucking that shit. It was great. Placebo, Smashing Pumpkins, everything was great. And they loved Def FX. So Def FX were getting all of these regional tours, which at the time I was thinking, why are you playing Townsville? But now I go, fuck yeah, play Townsville. Rob says yes. And I remember that a friend of mine who was a bass player, demon bass player, got booked to play with them. And they were paying him $200 a week. And that was in the early 90s. And $200 a week in the early 90s. Sure, man, what do you need expenses for? Because you don't have a place to stay anymore. All your shit's back at your mum's place. And you're on tour with us now. And that we're paying for your meals. And $200 that's for fucking more bass shit. If you want to buy bass stuff. Because that's how it was in the 90s. Then, when you come to the US... Okay, so when I first came here and started touring... it was pretty standard to be saying, we're going to pay you $500 a week, cash in hand. In that 10 years, 15 years, that's become, no one can do it for under $1,200 a week. No one. Because they're paying dead rent. They're paying all of these factors and reasons. So you're in a band paying with 3 other people, paying them $3,500, and that's not counting the car, etc. I'm sorry, am I depressing you? You can't fucking do it. Because you have to get that. Oh, it's not going to come from your merch either. That's a fucking myth. Why do people say, oh, basically you're going to pay for the whole thing and you're going to walk out of this with nothing? Because when you really break it down, that $1,500 or $1,200 or $1,000 that those other members are going, that's fundamental fucking survival. It's not paying for the yacht. Jesus Christ. And it's like, you know, I used to come out of tours with a couple of $100, and I thought, wow, I'm such a bastard. But then I broke it down. The amount of hours I'm working for, and that wasn't including the pre-thing. I think I was working for like $4 an hour. And I'm sorry, this rant's just gone into dark Carl territory, but when you're playing to 30 to 50 people a night, and that's the reality, and you think that now everything's gone back to normal, the last thing in the world I want is for things to go back to normal. I want fucking change. Oh God, I'm sorry, am I ranting now? Jesus Christ, there needs to be an economic overhaul of fucking music and the worth of artists. Jesus fucking Anetta, you should be paid $1,500 a fucking week, because if there was a brain surgeon who did what you did, that motherfucker could do their job well. Someone give me a fucking amen.
Amen.
I've been making. How long you been making music, Rezi?
I can't count. I don't
right.
know.
Ditto.
30 years. I don't know, 30 years.
And, you know, it's funny. I was looking at a licensing contract the other day, and it was like, wow, this is really ass fucking the musician. Oh, you're just going to get your stuff played on Netflix. It's good exposure. You know, next time I go into the fucking knife to have surgery or something, I'll say, you should, you know, when you take out my appendix, it'll be good exposure. Do you have a t-shirt? I'll wear that t-shirt saying Dr. Such and Such took out my fucking appendix. You should see that guy. He's awesome. Check out his surgeon camp. Wow. And you could buy a scalpel on his surgeon camp on Surgeon Camp Fridays when Surgeon Camp isn't paying some retarded fucking amount of money. 20%? Suck my fucking dick. Work for that 20 fucking percent. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I even suggesting that musicians should be paid what they're fucking worth? I'm sorry. Back to live touring. Everything's fine because we're going back to normal. Rezi? By the way, the new Angelspit album's angry as fuck. Let me tell you. Go ahead.
I have had a couple of extremely quiet years, and my revenue is in the hundreds. Really nice to say I'm making money as a musician. That's awesome, but it's not, has nothing to do with like making a living. Is anybody keeping track of actual gross net profit right now, and like knows that there is an income stream to rely on?
Yes.
In general?
Yeah. And as much as I fucking hate Spotify and everybody hates Spotify, people need to understand that Spotify, one, unfortunately, because of this great nation and world that we've built that says that meritocracy is real and says that there's a class system, and your fucking job in the fucking class system is to make money for the people above you. Do not for one fucking second think you are worth anything more than that. That's your fucking job. The job of the government is to take your money and give it to big fucking business. That's fucking it. But we're going back to normal, so everything's gonna be fine. So sure, Spotify is murderous, but when you break down, so I get 45,000 plays a month. That's public knowledge. You can look at my Spotify and you can see that. There's my cat. She starts meowing when I get pissed off. Oh my God, Shaya doesn't have cancer. Something was terribly wrong with her, and she has this outbreak, horrible, terrible outbreak, and me and my wife were fucking dying. Shaya doesn't have cancer. She doesn't have skin cancer. The biopsy came back. She has an autoimmune thing that's become resistant to antibiotics. They found another antibiotic and a steroid, and it's manageable. I just wanted to give you guys some good news because I've been in fucking... She has sat on my lap for the last 6 albums, and it's like, oh my God. Anyway, So there's some positivity. Spotify, yes, it's the devil. Yes, it sucks. Blah, 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 blah. But there is a back-end selling thing that is free for you. That for you to do a promotional campaign to use Boost or Facebook or anything else to be attracting these likes, to attract these listens, to actually pull things in would cost in the hundreds, possibly thousands. It's free on Spotify. Yes, that guy is a bastard, but at least he has, or they have set up something that will allow you to reach people within Spotify. I've tried to find something similar, and if something similar like this exists, God, that was such a good rant. If something similar like this exists on Apple Music, who only can hold like 5-7% of the market, Spotify owns 80% of the market. I'd like to know what Apple's, yes, we're going to help you push this to other people without charging you. Also, if Amazon have a similar thing, or Deezer, I want to know.
I just signed up with, claimed all my artist accounts on all of those services for DSPs, so I'll have more on that in the coming weeks.
Good. And remember, if you write a track or you're a featured artist, this is the rant I was having before. What's going to happen is 2 or 3 weeks before it gets released, if you submit it to your agitator a month in advance, it's going to come up. Spotify's going to send you an email saying, hey, you've got a new track. We want to now push that track to people. It's free. Fill in the blanks, tick the boxes, and make it happen.
Apple claims it's purely editorial, but I think I might know some people, so I'm going to look into that.
All right, that would be cool. Because if they have a back-end engine or something, that's great. If they're charging, fuck them.
There's no charges, but they also don't offer any like push to playlists kind of style thing. It's strictly, but their style sheet for photo submissions and stuff and lyrics.
Oh my God!
Comprehensive.
Oh my God!
It's like 11 pages on the photo.
We're not going to start on that. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of bullshit. And they do these demands, and let's remember, they have 7% of the market. Like, hey, Apple, fuck you. So if you're so fucking rich, why don't you help the artists so you can rape them for more money? Fuck you. Fuck jobs. Fuck the lot of you. I'm sorry. Who's next? Oh, we're going back to normal. Yay! Does anybody else have anything they want to throw in at this point? God, the new Angelspit album is so fucking good, man. It's so angry. I've been researching the underclass and the class war and the realities of media bullshit and everything, and it's like, wow, this fucking shit is really, 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 really problematic. So anyway, there you go. This is where I should apologize, but I'm not going to because I'm fucking sick of apologizing. Yay for back to normal! Okay, who else wants to talk about something positive and we can help y'alls? Rose. $1 Million Rose.
I'm back. I just wanted to let y'all know that me and Carl just got such an awesome review. I'm gonna share the URL in the chat right now. Hold on. Paste. Send. Okay. Yeah, we got an amazing review of my single Boogeyman and the insanely awesome remix by Carl. And yeah, it just like totally pumped me up so hard. And a bunch of people had asked about the publicity guy that I had hired. This actually wasn't through the publicity guy. This was somebody that had interviewed us before. That's a New York like rock person, whatever. So he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to, talk about your new single." So I sent him all the stuff, whatever. So yeah, good news. Happy, joy.
Happy, joy. Happy, joy indeed. And I really hope, I tell you something else, happy, joy, because it's the time of happy, joy, is that there are a whole bunch of new goth and underground printed magazines coming up. So if you see one, buy it. Help them out. Procession. Also, Postmodern Sleaze is another one. And search around. Postmodern Sleaze is done by Videopunks. Procession is in they're in DC, and they're a good old-fashioned black and white goth mag. And get it. Fucking support these guys and help them get it going. And if you're in a band, buy some ad space. Ivan.
Yeah, on the back to the horrificness that is artist pay. Back in the back when I was a kid, back in the 80s, my mom was a party / festival clown, which don't ever be that. One, nobody thinks that that's worth money at all. Two, quite often they think that you should just do it for free because apparently you went into it so wealthy that you could just do that for free. And we're not talking about like, the corporate overlords that think that they shouldn't pay you. No, this is municipalities, this is cities. This is non-for-profits that are like, well, you should just do this for free. Look at all the exposure you're going to get.
Yeah, so if anybody says it's good
the
exposure,
shit just keeps rolling downhill everywhere. And I think the art world, the performance world is it's like a weird hyper reality of this because you get out into the regular, the more regular world, like software development, nobody's going to be like, you should do this for exposure because it's like, well, then I won't do it. And they're like, oh, then I won't really get the project that I need done finished ever. So here's a pile of cash because I need your brain. And we should really be treating artists the same way.
Yes. Here's hoping that one day that will happen. Rose, thank you, Ivan.
One of the things that we say in circus world, because people, again, because, it's so fun. What it's like, you're having a good time. So that means that we don't need to pay you that much, which is ridiculous because we're risking our lives, literally. But one of the things we say in circus is people die of exposure. Don't get paid in exposure bucks. Okay, it's never worth it ever. just not. It's just not. Anything that I've actually I had it kind of pounded into me to just not do that. So, I think the one time that I did do it, it amounted to nothing at all. So it really wasn't worth it, and it just ended up costing me in the end. So, fuck exposure bucks. People die of it.
Exposure bucks. Absolutely. Thank you. Mark, today's a morning rant, and I'm really grateful. Mark, go.
Kind of, yeah. So, in fairness, in other industries, they also don't want to pay you. Like, for instance, with a lot of contracts for military stuff go out on bids. So it's not who's the best for the job, it's who's the cheapest for the job. And then, they might try and sneak out of actually paying you for this and that, and things go over budget. It's so much fun. But then there's also news. No one pays for news. No one wants to pay for news. Like, a lot of local news stations are shutting down because they have no money. And if they are continuing to go forward, it's because they might sign on with a larger corporation that basically will fund them. And there's also porn. No one pays for porn. No one wants to pay for porn. Like, there's a lot of industries that are just, no one wants to pay.
Sorry.
As someone who has professional experience in the adult industry, people do pay for it, but it's a much smaller selection, and it's people who are looking for something very specific, and they want to know the ethics of the production. They want to know kind of like the history of it and want to know that it's coming from a guaranteed source. Just want to watch. If you want to watch a generic act, there's plenty of opportunities to do that for free. If you are looking for something specific or niche, people are willing to pay for it. People are willing to pay for quality, and that comes to the value of art. If you're talking about like the broad funnel, that is no longer there. It's much narrower, focused funnels, and enthusiasts people who care and are passionate about things. Same goes for music and art as well. People will pay for quality. People will pay for something for a distinct and unique experience. If you want generic, you can get generic. Like recently there's a YouTube feed of basically music generator, and and it's a 24/7 feed of auto-generated music, and it's fascinating because it's passable. It's like, welcome to the world where we're obsolete. And it's like, you think that's a complex thing. Same, but people will still pay for art and for something that has been crafted. Same with adult. Same with it's like, you can walk into Target and get one piece of art to put on your wall. And the same piece of art that and it'll cost you $30. Or you can walk into an actual studio and pay someone $3,000 for something, and there will be one of it, and it'll be on your wall. Or you can pay $500,000 for a picture of a frog's butt as an NFT, and then be surprised that it's valueless. But that's a different direction. But yeah, the takeaway is people will pay for quality, but finding that audience is much more difficult than it used to be.
Yes. And that is something that's positive. That is, well, no. People do want quality. And people will want to back you. They will want to support you. For example, you find humans. You support me and others, and I sit here and make those extremely opinionated rants, and but nevertheless, people are there, and we're lucky in our community, in our tribe, in our genre, that there's a lot of people in white button downs who have got some crazy fucking tattoos going on under there. And the tattoos will be there always, and that attitude is going to be there always too. And they are going to, help and support. I've met so many people that I see them in their day jobs, and they look like a corporate dad, and it comes off, and they're this fucking motherfucker, and they're backing every Patreon they can get their hands on, and they're backing every Kickstarter, and that's our community. We are so blessed. I'm going to shut up now. Ivan! That sounded sexual. I'm sorry.
Okay, Rose, you were completely right on the we're going to pay less because you should be having fun. I did had an opportunity to take a job at Wizards of the Coast back in the day, and their pay rate was abysmal compared to the rest of the tech industry. Abysmal. And their reasoning was, well, you get to work here. Like, really? Can't afford to live here if I'm working here, so I'm gonna have to pass. So there was that, and yeah, I really need to take my ADHD meds today. What was the other thing? Having a good morning. What was it?
We were talking about exposure. We were talking about.
That'd be the other thing. I did have I had a really good interview with a free to play mobile game startup in Silicon Valley back like 6-8 years ago, when that was starting to become a thing. And part of the interview, because I was rather confused, it's like, free to play, well, how do you make your money? And you can buy in-game content. That was how they made their money. And as it turns out, an incredibly skinny percentage of the players were whales, and they spent so much money on a game that it made up for everybody else that was kind of just plodding along for free. It was super confusing to me, and but it apparently it works, and so we need to engagement with fans is probably super key these days.
I want to talk about also the media that doesn't get paid, because that's a point that got brought up that we need to talk about. I also want to talk about whales. So can someone remind me about the media? It's roughly across all industries. 80% of your income is going to come from 20% of your source. So, and that might mean I've got a track and I make all my money off that track, or I make synthesizers and we're making all of our money off this plugin. Everything else is, not so good. It's a standard thing. So be aware of that 80% of your income, Mez, that is such a good look, and I am jealous, is going to come from, a small section of your audience. I call them pillars, because those people will be with you the whole time. And it's funny, your pillars, you end up crashing at their house when you're on tour, and, you'll get to know them personally and they'll get to know you personally. And it's a good thing. It's a very, very good thing. Also, the 80-20 rule, thank you. It's an interesting thing when you look at how the model of the media, because, I can bitch all I want about being a musician, but how journalism has changed and how there is not money in journalism anymore unless you work for, a newspaper. Not many of them left. And it does put into question, I know that there is a lot of news that is bot generated, but it's just curious how increasingly the feed of our news, which shapes our conversation, our opinion, and our vote, is being generated by people, persons, or bots that have they're being backed by corporate interest to push something, to push an agenda, to push a product, to create outrage, to whatever. John, thank you. I know I want to hear this. Go.
It's it's agenda, but it's to make money as well. There's also some of it is reflection of the shrinking newsroom, and when somebody sends a well-written story that is basically like ready to go, and you don't have as many people working various beats, and you need content, you need to fill that, you need to fill a print publication, so in order for have something around the ads, of course you're going to have things that are basically like thinly veiled advertisements. That like you may have heard the term native advertising. It's like it's content that looks like actual journalistic content, but it's actually sponsored. Also, things like Sinclair Corporation, for example, if you want to talk about broadcast media, having a very narrow group of owners with agendas who buy up local stations and then provide nationally syndicated content through there, and a lot of native advertising content that they're either like here are the individual clips, you put your local talking head personality over there, read this script, and it is the exact same thing across 50, 100 different markets. It's like there's a lot of consolidation. iHeartMedia owns a ton of broadcast radio, and those are used to be individual DJs and personalities. Now those are literally just like handled by a handful of people sitting in remote locations with with a home kit, recording PSAs and things like that. So you will hear your local radio station, and they might make a reference to it being 70 degrees according to NOAA weather, and that's it. That's the only indication that you have that it's local. Like the sense of what is local is definitely diminishing, and that you talked about underground and indie publications and snapping up zines and so forth. It's like, what is this? How can you build communities? How can you have that sense of what is going on from an authoritative source that you can trust? What is happening in your local community? How do you what is newsworthy, what matters. And there's the very old adage of like, if it bleeds, it leads. But like, what if there's a fire that displaces like 20 families? Like, it's like you might hear about that for about a day, but like, where are you going to hear it from? Are you going to be hearing about it from a Facebook post that has been, are you hearing about it on a local Discord server? Craigslist? Nothing. You don't hear about it. Like, cat stuck in tree matters.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah, for example, there's been a massive flood that has decimated the east coast of Australia. And okay, so a place near where my parents live, you know how we measure rain in inches? Over the 3-day weekend, actually there's a whole bunch of places that recorded 5 feet of rain. 5 feet of rain. 5 feet of rain. Cities were evacuated. Most dams overflowed. Most rivers burst. And normally when something like this happens, it's a cyclonic event. Australian cyclones are pretty serious. They're very fucking serious. But it's only going to hit this part. It doesn't hit the top and move all the way down the coast. What caused it? Why? It was a freak weather event. And they're predicting another one next year. Would you like to know why there was a freak weather event? Climate change. But that sure as fuck didn't make the news. It's really interesting. I'm sorry, now I'm off topic, but I can't handle watching. I've decided CNN is absolute bullshit, and I refuse to watch it. I'm politically aligned with Gandhi and Martin Luther King, by the way. Fuck yeah. See you next time, Mez. It's really funny that every time they have a specialist or so many specialists on, they just happen to be publishing a book on the matter. And I've been Googling a lot of the generals and stuff, well, before I stopped giving a fuck. And surprise, surprise, they have shares or leads into the military complex, as in they're getting money from arms sales. So it's just, it just never ends. It just never fucking ends. What do you do? Write a song about it and get angry. And then get blocked from Facebook because you said the wrong thing. What do? You get outraged. Outrage is good sometimes. That's what I think. Get educated, get clear, get outraged. Tell people who care. Yeah. Wow, this has been so intense, and I thank you alls. Yeah. I'm reading comments, and they're great. So, do we want to talk about something else fantastic and about making money, making music? That is not.
You did not address whales, I think.
Oh yeah, I briefly addressed whales.
Fuck, I must have missed it.
Yeah, no, you want whales. Whales are great because whales want to support. And it's funny that a lot of the whales that I know are ex-punk rockers or ex-rockers or ex-goths who their brain got them into a job where they're making a lot of money usually in the tech industry, and they want to help. And they're back in bands, back in Kickstarters. They're really, really amazing. There's a lot of whales out there, and they're there to help. Rezi, please.
I just wanted to say, John, thanks for reminding me about that Sinclair compilation of all their stations reading the same copy. That is an astounding little thing. If you're not as angry as Carl, you might get so from that. And Mark, native advertising you mentioned in your link is one of the most doublespeak, dystopian, sort of obfuscated motivation words invented in the modern era. So thanks for the link to that.
Yeah, I used to work if you look at my CV, you can probably figure out one of the major news publications that I've done work for. I'm working on their content management system, and they had a system for native advertising and presenting content, and it would keep getting accidentally broken, and it wouldn't actually display that it was sponsored content. And they were like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, let's deprioritize the fix. And like, I'm like, no, this needs a label, and I'm going to take the time to make sure it has the label, because I have the power to do that. And but also, like, it's like, if the asshole wearing the EFF hat isn't there watching and poking them, like, yeah, it's
you're one of the good ones. Not everybody has that attitude in the trenches writing code.
Oh yeah, being on. You want to talk about advertising? That's
sure.
Fun. Digital No.
Okay, no.
This is angry and dystopian enough. Anyway, I want to retire. Like, yeah, cabin in the woods.
I started counting impressions of cola logos after reading the Naomi Klein book 20 years ago, and that was like sort of my entree to noticing what I'm being exposed to, that somebody paid to have that information there. And it's obviously gotten a lot more complicated to keep track of that stuff, but it is an interesting habit to be in.
Yes. And I'm just loving the comments on Twitch right now, Aristocrat, that I'm loving what you're saying. Yes, I think that this is a really nice moment to just be reminded that what you think and what you're going through, because, it's hard to make, it's hard to find fact about, what your opinions are. It is. It's hard to find the facts, and it's hard to measure up both sides of the things. But you sure as fuck can comment on how you feel. And you can comment on how this is making you angry, happy, sad, or whatever. And you use that in your music. Because I think increasingly that there is a problem in our society amongst everyone, that it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you say it. That you can say something totally accurate, but if you say it in the wrong way, you get shut down, cancelled, blah, blah, blah. I say fuck that, because I don't fucking care. I do not care anymore. I will not be a slave to this bullshit 1984 system where there are thought police and Stasi fucking everywhere in my own fucking feed. I'm done. I'm done. My cabin in the woods starts here and now, because I'm fucking done. And in the words of the fucking prophets of our time, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And that's the problem, is because we're doing what we're told. Because we're afraid we're going to lose our job, which means our fucking health care. We're afraid that we're going to lose the influence to a whole bunch of people who don't give a fuck. This is all you are to them. They don't fucking care. When your tragedy becomes their entertainment, what is wrong with this picture? And when their tragedy becomes your entertainment, we need to start examining who we are. We need to start examining that this fucking poison is affecting me. I have to stop my exposure to this poison because I can't fucking help people or help myself. More importantly, I cannot become a solid being anymore because of the amount of poison that's in the water. Stop drinking the water. Because the problem with the water is everybody is pissing in it. And then we're drinking it. That's the problem. You don't have to drink the water. There's so much water around. You're drinking the water because you're being told to drink the fucking water. That's the problem. I'm mid-rant, but you can have it.
You're drinking the water from the piss hole because that's where all the other people are.
Yeah.
And that's the double-edged sword. It's like finding the clean water that you can share.
Absolutely. I agree. That's the truth, man, is finding the clean water that you can share. Thank you, John. That nailed it. It is so important that you have a vehicle for you to get all of this toxin, to get it out. and that's your music or your art. And you can play it to the world or play it to yourself. That's part 2 of this. And then there's all the pushing it. That's part 2 of this. The important thing is that you are getting your truth and your sincerity out, and your anger and your frustration out, because I will fucking guarantee you, and every single one of you guys, I've heard your music. Whose music I've heard, it's like, yeah, man, those lyrics, I get it. Yes, I agree with that. And that is our closed fist. That inside it's a warm place. I have to work on that metaphor. It's it's not quite there yet, but you know what I mean. Yes, it's the clenched ass. So that's my thoughts, is that is the positive healing strength here that I have to offer, is you're not alone. And you know, you might, I did a lyric recently that was, if those naive idiots don't stop talking, they're going to turn me Republican. And Lordy Lord. And it's a really interesting lyric, because I wrote it in such a way that it's like, are those naive people talking to me about Republican things and they're going to convert me? Or are they hardcore blue people who are talking to me and I'm getting so pissed off with everything they say, I'm going to turn into a Republican? Or is it, what the fuck is the Republican Party anyway? That doesn't matter. But the point of what I'm trying to say here is that everybody is feeling this, and feeling is the core word, this confusion and darkness and toxicity. And like John said, we're all drinking from the piss, because, you know, I guess we're all hanging around there. Just walk away. Walk away. Where's he go?
Actually, just remembered, I hadn't given myself a minute to even think about this, but you're talking about walking away and finding where the clean water is. I had an experience this year with a company for my design and development stuff. They approached me with not a really clear idea. I didn't get a clear idea of what they did. And it was a firm that basically took entrepreneurial ideas, matched them with brands that were willing to be associated with that, and then found a product for the people. And it was like, it didn't feel right from the beginning. And I think it really plays into this like uninspired person that just wants to make some money, but kind of has like a vague idea. And then certainly corporate interests that have a lot of money and want their branding on things. And then this third party that would connect them and maybe find a manufacturer of some widget that took the logo and the idea together. And it was a big project, and I was 80 hours into it, and I had already involved, you know, contractors and stuff. And I walked away from that. And I'm, after Carl's last rant, starting to appreciate that is a good thing to do. I had to cut a very large check back to this client from their deposit, and it was painful, but boy, do I feel good about that today.
Make music about it.
Hell yeah.
Ivan, blow me away.
Okay, the drink and the piss. I'm suddenly wanting to apply a thing that got told to me back in the day to the broader society as a whole. When I was working at Midway Games, one of the senior tools and tech guys, an amazingly smart guy, you know, and everybody Midway was a place where you were surrounded by some of the smartest, coolest, funnest, nicest people on the planet, and somehow we had managed to make an extremely stressful environment at the same time, because video games. But he had this joke that he liked to tell new people about when he started at Midway. When he started at Midway, he came into work one day, the first day, and they showed him to his desk. And when he got to his desk, there was a glass of piss sitting on the desk. And his coworkers were like, "So it's your first day. You should just drink that quick and get it over with, and everything will be fine." And he was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." He really fought with them hard on this. "I'm not drinking the piss." And he kept fighting with them every day. He'd come in and there'd be a new glass of piss sitting there, and he would dump it out and go forward. After a while, he was like, okay, yeah, just get this over with. Drinks it down. It's disgusting, but he got through it. Next day he comes in, same thing, drinks it down. It's disgusting and got over it. After a while, he just would come into work every morning, drink that glass of piss down, and then get on with the rest of his day. Then one day, he came in and there was no glass of piss sitting there. Suddenly he was worried. What did I do wrong? Why isn't this waiting for me? I think that I think everybody has gotten used to just sucking it down, and we're worried what might happen if the piss disappeared.
That's really interesting. I just hope they weren't eating asparagus beforehand. Now that's really interesting. We're talking about drinking piss, which I have touched on in lyrics before. It's a. Sorry, John. Yeah, it's like this. Besides the actual drinking of urine, this is an interesting thing that we have become addicted to toxin. It's toxic, and we're addicted to it. And one other thing I wanted to leave you with is that I always seem to be going back to this period in the mid-early 90s when the internet was cool, and music wasn't genre-bound, and artists like David Carlson were just destroying, ripping shit up. And the movies weren't, they were all these new, breaking, they weren't fucking rehashes and redos and sequels and blah, blah, blah. And it's not to reminisce about that time. It is to remind myself that there are many people, there are many people who also remember that explosive freshness. And I believe that's also when Rage Against the Machine was screaming at us. That explosive freshness, and that was something that they looked back to. And those people will always want music. They will always want art. They will always want your thoughts and opinions. So no matter how alone you think you are, you're not. Because there's a lot of people around that watering hole who are just going, why are we doing this? Like, come on. So that is a message to you as artists. Push forward. Keep going. Don't think that there's an expectation. Because, you know what? I don't think there is. That's all I have to say. Actually, it's not. I could keep going. But I'm not going to bore you. Does anybody have something fun and lovely? We're close to time. Diana, thank you so much. We're going to be rating to MTV TV very shortly. And once we're done, I will gladly leave this open and you guys can talk. But I have a hot date with that beautiful synthesizer behind me. And I'm going to make some very fucking evil music. And
you want to be patched?
Yeah, oh yeah, that one does. Yeah, but I'll make notes about the patching. So if anybody has any last thoughts or any thoughts they want to talk about next week or a challenge?
Impact Soundworks has a new sample bank out that's free. Suggested donation of $5, but you can just, I paid $5 for it. It's called the 88E, and it is a sampled piano where they only sampled, literally E strings. And if you want piano hits, it's freaking awesome. It is dark and evil and weird and, well, stringy. But like, if you're looking for a new source of hits, for free or $5, it's definitely worth the price of admission. Just change things up.
And it's a sample library.
Yep, it's a sample library for Contact.
Okay, cool.
But you Contact free, you should play it.
Okay, cool. Remind me about samples, because that's going to be my closing thing. But first, here's Rose.
Oh snap! I just dropped the link in the chat. Speaking of broadcast TV, I was on broadcast TV this week, doing an interview about circus and about horror punk, and it was really interesting because I had to explain so many things. like it was like, what is horror punk? What is that? And then I was like, and I was talking about the Angelspit remix. I was like, yeah, I was like cyberpunk versus what's cyberpunk? And I was like, oh man, like sometimes you forget like how niche you really are. I was like, oh man, like I have to explain like what goth is to somebody. Like, oh shit, But yeah, it was really interesting. And the whole episode is actually talking about like different artistic things going on in New York City and stuff like that. And talked about diversity in music and stuff like that, and in our scene in particular. So yeah, check it out. Pretty cool. The link is there, and my part starts at like 26 minutes and 46 seconds. It's right at the end. But it was pretty cool. I was like, wow, for our kind of music to get covered in a show like this that's very vanilla. It's very much like not having to do anything at all with our scene. Was really interesting, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Good on you.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I would like to inspire people to go on a safari. Challenge, inspire. If you have a handheld microphone or even your phone, take it on out and record some sounds, turn them into samples. Also, take your phone, shoot some graffiti. Take some wisdom from the streets, some things that people have written, and be inspired by it. And push this stuff into lyrics and concepts and cool shit. And add it all into the pot and see what comes out. Because, man, I would love to go on a rant right now about protest music and how protest music has changed a lot. But I think protest music is important and real and relevant. Rosa.
I'm back. Shiza, I just had something to say, and then boom, it just slipped my mind. I just pulled an Ivan.
Taking the streets, graffiti. Your eyes popped up when I talked about graffiti.
I remember. Okay, yeah. So you were talking about that, and one of the things that one of my favorite art teachers ever told me to do, told my whole class to do really, was to always keep a little notebook in your pocket, like just a small little book. And whenever he's like, I want all of you, everybody in this class, I want you to become art thieves. Every time that you see something and it catches your eye, I want you to write down, yeah, exactly, Raz, exactly. I want you to write down what it is about that thing that caught your eye. And then if anybody ever notices, just say that you were influenced by them. And I thought that was so cool. It was so punk rock. He was just like, yeah, just go out and, when you see things, think about what it is about that thing, what stood out to you, and write it down so that later on when you're trying to figure out what direction you want to go with, your art. And I think this applies to anything. It applies to music too, what is it about that thing that you like so much? Like I've been listening to a bunch of K-pop recently. This band KDA was really good, and I was like listening to their song structure, and it's so different, from the usual stuff that I listen to, and I was like, and it gave me a lot of really interesting ideas. So it's always really a good plan to take a little hop outside and see what else is outside of your genre that has something interesting and something of value to you that you can learn from, that you just can expand your whole palette. Like I just saw this band Bloodywood. Holy crap, they're like an Indian metal band. These guys are insane. Check out this song Dana Dan on YouTube. Check out this video. It's sick. I mean, it is crazy, and it is such a cool and very unique and interesting mix, and I love stuff like that. I love stuff that's like that really just goes outside of the norm and mixes things together that you wouldn't expect. And that is really one of the ones that really stood out to me this week. So go ahead and check that out, guys, because it's really cool to see people just do this really, genre breaking, really cool, really interesting stuff. And it will make your music better.
Good on you. All right. I'm going to call it. Today's been great, and I really appreciate this. This has been wonderful. I'm grateful. Diana, we are going on over to MTV TV because it's the fucking place. Your new favorite band is waiting for you there. And if you're in a band, you need to send them your damn video because your new audience is waiting for you there. Right? Yeah. Boom. So that's the link. Let's raid. Let's go to MTV TV. Bye. 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 Bye.